Connect West Palm Beach. I'm on the board of directors along with a couple of other board of directors. Myself, Joe Ruskowski, Steve Knatzer, Juan Ariana on the camera are all on the board of Connect West Palm Beach. We want to welcome you to this new Bourbon Sprawl hosted at Narbonne. So we want to thank our amazing bartender, Amanda, for being our host tonight. We really like this location. It's on a great spot right on Clematis Street, our featured street for our presentation tonight. We have a really good lineup. I wanted to just get a couple of quick announcements out there. First of all, if you're not signed up for Connect West Palm Beach's email blast, ConnectWPB.org, you get signed up. We have a couple of really cool events coming up in June. This Sunday coming up, the 23rd, I believe, we have our Lake Avenue bike lanes. We're going to meet and do a cleanup of that street along with the Dryer Park Neighborhood Association we partnered up with. And then on Saturday,
we're still looking for volunteers, so
we still need volunteers.
Yeah.
So we're going to be canvassing the street, we're going to be sweeping the street, picking up trash, and marking vehicles that are parked in the bike lane for follow-up with police and for parking enforcement so that we can get the bike lanes cleared in West Palm. And then we're going to be doing the entire section from Southern to Forest Hill to start, and then we'll follow up a little bit later to the remaining sections from Southern to Bellevue. On the 29th, we also have the Flagler Pedal Party. So on that date, we're going to close out a section of Flagler Boulevard for 3 blocks on Southern Boulevard and Forest Hill. We're going to be illustrating what a protected bike lane looks like with the City of West Palm Beach Engineering Department. So that event runs, I believe it's on Facebook. It's at 9 o'clock on the 29th. Please come out, bring your bikes, and if you don't have a bike, or who doesn't have one here, Skybike is providing bicycles on the day.
Do you have any bikes?
I have plenty of bikes.
If you don't have a bike, we're going to be getting feedback on what you feel like the bike lane is with the protection, without the protection. There's going to be cars parked in the street to demonstrate what it feels like providing a protected bike lane against the cars and traffic. It's going to be really cool. So
family-centric event, so if you have kids,
Free helmets from Vision Zero.
There'll be free helmets for kids, so bring them out. It is, give them a free helmet. Encourage your friends and their families to please come out too. We want to get input from everybody who walks and bikes in this palm, not just the typical male bicyclist in spandex. We want to get women, children, elderly, vandals, people who have been in biking or cone biking.
Manatees on bikes, I like it.
So, without further ado, we'll get into our featured speakers. We have 3 tonight. We usually have 1 speaker for Bourbon Sprawl. We convince 3 people to come out here at the cost of appetizers and whatever beverages they are choosing on their phone to come and speak. We have Maria Aponte, City of West Palm Beach Planning. Erik Ferguson, City of Boca Raton. Allison Justice with the Community Development Agency. All here to see what it took to build the Clematis Street 300 block and other sections of it too. As it moving forward, this is going to be a project that connects Rosemary and Clematis Street. So I ask that you give them your attention. It's going to be very informative. And if you have questions, please hold them until the end. Thanks.
I've reached this place right now. So I'm going to give first a little bit of a background information of how we have been to this point, and then Allison and Erik are going to talk more about the project of the Connected or the entire project. So I decided to start with a couple of images of Clematis, the historic Clematis Street. I don't know how many of you have seen these pictures, but this is a picture of Clematis Street around 1950. You can see how dynamic this street was, with all the cars, all the people, all the stores that were around there. This is another one of Clematis, also 1919. Full of people. I think probably this was a festival or something, with all the stores. If you remember, Clematis was the main street of downtown or the city. It was where all the stores were. It was where you connect with Palm Beach, took the ferry to go to Palm Beach. It was kind of the central sign of West Palm Beach, and all the economic activity was basically around that location. It was our main street, our Clematis Street. This is another image. I think this is probably, I don't know, the cars are 60s. So maybe.
Late 50s. Yeah.
So again, it's still, you have all the stores going on in there and all the activity. You can notice that there's no landscape, right? From the early days, there's cars, there's space for the pedestrians, the stores, the awnings, everything, there's no landscape. So we see an evolution here. So after that, something happened. Everybody knows it, but after the Second World War, things changed, the dynamics changed, the servers were expanding, people started like thinking that they didn't want to live in an urban environment any longer, and they decided to move to the suburbs. The Palm Beach Mall opened, and things started to change in downtown. Businesses started to leave, and then we ended up with this. Basically, a downtown that was pretty much vacant, the stores left, so it was closed stores. You can see that the picture on the right is not Clematis, it's Banyan Boulevard, but you can see it's like bail-bond businesses that were not attractive. The major stores like the Dines or the Woolworths, they closed, they left. So there's a total different dynamic in downtown Costa Beach, and we end up with a street that is totally people-oriented, but there's also not people in there. The businesses are gone. So back then, see, this is a picture of downtown also. You see lots of parking lots, buildings were turned down, converted to parking lots, and even those were not fully occupied because there were not that many people. So this is the downtown that we end up with around probably, this picture probably is from the 80s. This is what we have. So what happened? Thanks to city leadership, I think the community put together these and they decided to revamp and do a new vision for downtown and give the importance of downtown to rescue the entire thing. So there's several actions that were taken from the 80s to get where we are right now. I think important things that are fundamental to this is in 85, the CRA was created. And that is very important because Allison here is the one that has the financial resources to do all the projects that we are doing. So if they had not created the CRA in 85, we probably would have had a difficult time doing what we are doing right now.
So, and I'm not going to go into a CRA 101, but for those of you that don't understand, I think actually it would be a great Bourbon Sprawl as a CRA 101, but for the redevelopment agency, what happened in 1985 when the redevelopment agency was created was the taxes essentially, they didn't freeze. Everybody's taxes continued to go up. But from the point of 1985 forward, all of the city taxes, 95% of the city taxes went into a fund or downtown within the redevelopment agency. The important part of the CRA, it's also 95% of the county taxes go into the CRA. Ad valorem county taxes come to this CRA, can only be spent in this CRA. The county does not control that funding. It is only controlled by the CRA. So when you see why does the CRA have the funding that they have, is because one, we get both city and county ad valorem taxes, and two, since 1985, we've gone from, I believe, the property values were, oh my gosh, 51 million to now it's $2.5, almost $3 billion downtown. So our property tax value obviously has increased. So that's just a snippet of
It's very important snippet because if we didn't have the CRA back then, we will not have what we have right now. It would have been a very difficult redevelopment process to push all this with just city resources in that case. In addition to that, and I always talk about this because all these steps that the city has taken over the years, and there's a long-term process, have helped to create what we are able to achieve right now. In 1995, the city adopted the Downtown Master Plan. And the Downtown Master Plan was the one to allow to create the framework, the regulatory framework, to produce the buildings that are created in the downtown right now. So what does that mean? Buildings that are next to the street, that address the street, that have active storefronts, that have active uses, that are required to provide sidewalks, that are mix of uses, that is not just a gated community, they cannot put a fence around it, they have to engage the street, and that is what is created the public realm that we have here. In addition to that, we implemented a traffic concurrency exception area, and that is also what allows us to have the intensity of development that we have right now without having to widen the roads. So when we do the 20-story buildings, office buildings that we are doing, or even the 50-story residential building, if we were not in a traffic concurrency exception area, the traffic will force the developer or the city to widen the roads to a point that is not pedestrian friendly anymore. So the combination of those two elements have helped also to create what we have right now. And moving forward from that, we just adopted last year the mobility study that is guiding at this point all the public investment with priority given to the people environment. So that's also like how we move people and make the downtown a pedestrian friendly environment. So all those, I put all those things because, as I say, it's a process that has taken lots of years, but one without the other one doesn't work. So it's like we're building in our own progress to help this, to create this. As I talked before, the guiding principles of these documents are always like related to how we design the private realm with the building, with the form of the building, the placement and the uses of those buildings, to create also a public realm that works together through parks, sidewalks, streetscape, lighting, to create spaces for people. That is what all this is about. A downtown where we can walk, feel comfortable with, everybody interacts, where we have mix of uses, mix of activities, we have 24-hour life, and that's what makes the downtown vibrant and produce what we have right now. So how we have worked with this transformation and how that translates into the streetscape project as the Clematis Street project. So we moved from a Clematis Street in 70s that was basically dedicated to cars, 11-foot travel lanes, all in one direction, 3 travel lanes, all in one direction, and only 10-foot wide sidewalks with basically no landscape. To go into the 90s, where this was the first streetscape project launched in downtown. In the early 90s, the city put with the CRA funds, the first streetscape where we did what we had on Clematis Street for the last 20 years. Where we provided more shade, where the quality of the space was enhanced for the pedestrian and with the intention to activate the street for pedestrian enjoyment. Stores next to the sidewalk was widened, we wanted sidewalk capacity, places for people, shade. But you can see, this was what we had, and it still was converted in 2 ways, with 13-foot wide sidewalks. So we are evolving from that. Again, it's a new space, a new process. We are continuing this evolution of improving the quality of the downtown step forward. So back now we are in 2018 with a Clematis Street that is fine, it's not bad, it's good. We have vibrant sidewalks, we have street restaurants on the sidewalk, but then we have certain issues. The sidewalks are still too narrow for the amount of people that we have. So we have restrictions for pedestrians cannot really walk comfortably. We have still a 20% vacancy on the street. So it's still an issue. It's not as vibrant as we would like to be. So we continue this exploration and this trying to improve things. So we come up with a series of actions that will try to move the street to the next level. First one that we did is we opened the uses along Clematis Street. The previous regulation had that you only were allowed to retail uses along the first floor of Clematis Street. Clematis Street and after Rosemary also. So that was causing some issues. We didn't have the retail that we wanted. The retails were not coming to Clematis Street for endless reasons, different things. So we were having empty spaces. So one of the actions after debating internally and with the community for a long time, we're going to open the uses on the ground floor. So we changed the regulation and now office spaces are allowed on Clematis Street. We are right now in the process of probably having the first office use on the ground floor of a large building on Clematis. We'll see how it works. We still are kind of sensitive discussing the pros and cons of that. We'll see how it evolves and maybe at some point we go back to not having the office uses, but it's part of the process of evolution. The second thing that we did is trying to put city funds where we wanted, trying to attract the retail that we wanted, coming with the resources from the public investment. So CRA is working on the renovation of 314 Clematis to basically create this space that has retail users and restaurants as we wanted on Clematis. This will transport the dynamic of Clematis and create the retail dynamic that we are looking for. So in this case, the private community was not moving forward with it, so the public investment comes to play and say, we're gonna do it.
Which is one of the roles of the CRA, is if the private sector is not ready to do something on their own, the CRA has the capabilities as a public sector to try and jumpstart that so that the private sector will be involved. Government does not want to be involved, really we don't want to be involved in projects like this, but we found that the Sunset Lounge is one of them with the CRA, 314 Clematis is another, as we're addressing an issue with these huge spaces that were nightclub spaces that we're trying to solve a real problem in downtown East Long Beach.
Yeah. So this one is also addressing another of the goals, is how to activate the alleys behind Clematis. So this project is going to tackle those two, and it will be basically a demonstration project for the entire street and the downtown. See, can we move this forward? Is this an important project for the downtown that will kind of change the dynamic of the Clematis Street? And then the third one was putting some resources on enhancing the public realm to create more space for people. And this one is kind of, we had a streetscape that works, it's fine, but we think we can do better. It needs kind of a facelift. We want to just bring the street to the 2020s and design the street for the next 30 years as this is new design. So this is where Erik and Allison came aboard with how to design this new space.
No, there's more.
Oh,
There you go.
So,
that's on your slide. All right, great. And I know what you're saying. All right. So Anna took us kind of from the how did we get to this point? And obviously, we're in the next generation. We're trying to. It's important for us to make spaces for people for all modes of transportation, bikes, pedestrians, and vehicles. We had some people that suggested that we close Clematis Street off to pedestrians. At this point, we do not believe that is the appropriate way to go with our main street. It may evolve to that. We don't know. We cannot predict what's going to happen 20 years from now. But we're, like Anna Maria said, we're building it for the next 30 years. And we're just going to talk a little bit about the reason the CRA is involved, again, is as a funding agency, we are concerned about redevelopment. We're concerned about the vacancies on the street. We're concerned about, as we mentioned with 314, about different spaces that are leasing out. So how do we address these things? So these are all redevelopment objectives here. It's how do you make the public space better for people to come, stay, and be. So in 2008, they had an attempt to widen the sidewalks, to add more shade trees. It was met with a lot of resistance. So at that time, the parking on the street was extremely important to the business owners. And as you can understand, parking on the street is extremely valuable to a retail shop. They want somebody to be able to come in, park in front of their store, and come into the store. But as we've gone along,
can I say something? It's important what Allison is saying, because that is the process of the evolution. When we tried to do that in 2008, the parking was so important that none of the businesses along the street wanted us to remove any parking spaces. So enhancing the public realm and being able to provide more space for people without being able to remove the parking spaces was like a lot. We could not, right? So the project ended up like, okay, we can narrow the travel lanes and add a foot. It was a huge investment to add a foot of space. So we ended up saying no. Then the second thing that happened is for the shade that we were proposing, we had front trees along the street. When we went with the proposal to remove just few spaces and get some allowed to put shade trees, was not well received. The residents and the business owners say, no, 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 this is West Palm Beach. We want palms on the city. We don't want shade trees because they will block our signs and they are not an identity for us. So at that point, the project ended up being replaced with the light.
Right.
New palms.
And put new pumps, yes. The pumps have to be replaced, but they have pumps for pumps. Nothing else. So that is kind of what I'm saying. It's a process. The community has to get engaged and we have to evolve to be able to do it.
That's what Allison was talking about next, was one part of. Right, I guess think about we're talking about next, what changed from 2008 to now to allow a process.
Right.
We're going to talk about the process next.
Yeah, yeah. So just to go through kind of the process, and some of you have heard this before because these are things we went through when we started the first phase of the Clematis Streetscape project. But Maria mentioned some of this, the mobility study. We had Jeff Speck here for the walkability study. We've had, we've had countless studies. More studies than you can shake a stick at. We don't. But it was consistent. We need more shade. People need, it's South Florida, it's hot. People need to be comfortable here. If you're comfortable, you'll stay. If you're in a place, if you're comfortable, you'll stay. So whether it's shade or whether it's white sidewalk or what it may be, if it's comfortable, you'll stay. So this is kind of where we started with the design processes. We got to talk about shade. And there's a give and take. And in 2008, people weren't willing to give the parking or the shade. So mobility plan, again, Anna Maria kind of went through the mobility plan and how important it is to have places for people. And then as we started looking at the space, it's not just, there's 10-foot sidewalks out there. So on its own, 10-foot sidewalks on Clematis Street is a comfortable environment. However, when you add a light pole and you add chairs and you add people walking and dining, I mean, everybody knows it's no secret that it's hard to walk even with two people down the street on Clematis Street when there's dining. And we don't want to take away that dining. We love the environment that restaurants have tables out there and you can go sit outside and dine. You don't want to remove that either. So it's creating that space for people. The city went through a pilot project with parklets. Okay, so how do we expand that space without doing, this is a temporary, an inexpensive temporary project. How do we work that into our overall plans? And how do we show people, hey, it could work if you took away a couple parking spots, but you had more places for people to dine. The design process, again, this covers 600, this was an old one, so we're really going down both north and south 100 block of Clematis Street on this project as well. And the way we started was, honestly, the way it started was the CRA had $2 million budgeted for Clematis. What are we going to do on Clematis? And we wanted to start the public input process then. And we went out and started asking the public, for $2 million, you can get one block done the way the block we believe and we think everybody believes the block should be done. Let's work through that process. Or we can add shade trees on every block, and we can get all this done in the summer. And how do you see Clematis moving forward? And I mean, I don't even think it was overwhelming. The response was no. If we're going to do something, this wasn't going to be 2008 where we did some incremental changes. We want to do it right. And the commission was even more adamant that not only are we going to do it, you're going to guarantee you're going to fund the rest of the street, and we want it completed. And we started this process before City Place started their process. Luckily, because had we started after, again, that is we actually got a little bit of a leg up on the City Place on some of this. Because had it been after City Place gets done, or Rosemary Square gets done with everything, then we're behind the 8 ball on revamping Clematis Street. So the outreach was with the chamber, the DDA, the merchants, commissioner, mayor, and I'll talk a little bit about the lessons learned. And Erik says something a little bit about the lessons learned. Is we didn't do it as well as we could have done it the first time. The second time around in the public outreach was even better. We went one-on-one with all of the property owners. We talked to all of the merchants. We tried to take everybody's wishes into consideration when we designed. So it was a much more thorough process, but it was a lesson that we learned from the first process we went through. We went to the green market. We had a interactive workshop, and the DAC. And these are some of the things. Dover Cole was our designer, or our designers on this. And Victor Dover literally wrote the book on streetscapes, downtown streetscapes, so we were happy to have them on our team. But they did kind of a now and then, and what people thought. One word that people thought about the street, one word that people wanted to see in the street. So there were bad, there were bad things, and there was a lot of good things, fun, energy. There was a lot of good things about Clematis Street. There's a lot of things they wanted. Again, this was just part of the outreach. So part of, we had dots and people could choose what type of design they liked. They also did it through an electronic survey when we had our outreach meeting. Just got a lot of people's different opinion on what do you expect and what do you want to see. And how do we add value to the street? So we always knew that, and our designers felt like the Bourbon Street was really the way, kind of the future, not of the future in the States, really, not in Europe. I mean, they have plaza feeling everywhere, but we're coming along. But we wanted to feel like a street where everybody could be, and feel like a plaza, and make you feel okay with walking across Clematis Street, wherever on Clematis Street. Wider sidewalks, obviously, more shade, narrow traffic lanes. Extremely important, and Erik will talk a little bit about some of the controversy around the narrow travel lanes, but really that was very much on purpose because we don't want people going fast out on that. So this is not a thoroughfare. This is a place you can go through, but it's definitely not a thoroughfare. Additional dining and seating, and then the materials. Another thing that we heard from our elected officials was, and both the DAX board as well, is we want high quality materials. We don't want, this is our main street. We want to make sure it looks as such. So again, this was the existing. So after we incorporated the feedback, and this was the proposed. So again, the Bourbon Street. We originally were, and I think Erik has this on because we were originally going to do a concrete roadway. Was our original plan, and changed to pavers mid-process. So this was an evolving process.
I was going to say this was public meetings. It came out pretty close to this at the end. Even with I'll talk about the value engineering we had to do at the end. I still think we ended up pretty close to this.
So with the design, this is just kind of what it was. It was a 9-foot walkway dining. We had 8 foot of parking. We had a 26-foot roadway, and that's how it was broken up before. Currently, the proposed concept, which was how it was built, is a 12-foot walkway, 7-foot dining, parking, and seating. So it just depends on whether there's a parking spot there or a tree in that spot. And then an 18-foot roadway. It's 9-foot travel lanes, but it's a 2-foot valley gutter. So really, everybody gets 10 foot on each side, or a little over 10 foot on each side.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a good place. It's a minor, it's very subtle what Dover Cole did, but traditional practice is that 2 foot on the right, you put it all in the parking to make the lane feel bigger. So they split it, and I'll talk about it later, but I wish I had taken screenshots. We had every day on social media when we were building this, the road was not going to be wide enough for cars to drive down. I really wish I had captured that. I had a slide of it. And I got stopped, I'll joke with Allison, every day people got to know me, the project manager, are you sure two cars are going to be able to fit down the street? I'm like,
they say is this going to be only one way?
That was the big rumor on social media. It was only going to be a one-way street.
I will say, part of the lessons learned is we realized people can't parallel park, and we had some challenges with people. They park a little too close to the roadway, so when we have trolleys that go down, it is tight. that. So in the next phases, we've expanded that a little bit and given them a little bit more room to park in there. So, but that was the beauty of having this pilot project for the 300 block, is we were able to modify some of those minor designs that we had and make it even better than this section will even be even better than the 300 block. This is coming to you. Oh, so anyway, this is just a change in public space. And Anna Maria, do you want to?
Yeah, this one I put it together because we found it was very interesting to see how the dynamic and how the perspective of how we're building a city has changed over the years. So when we were doing this, we ended up like doing this calculation and comparing what was the design of the street of the 70s and what was the design that we're putting together right now. And if you see the percentages, you see how it flipped. When in the 70s you have 72% of the space of the street was dedicated to cars, while only 28% was dedicated to people. Now with the new design, we kind of reverse all that and say 45% of the space is dedicated to cars, and 55% is dedicated to people. And that responds to the dynamic of like the community is asking for something different now. In the 90s, when we did it the last time, it was 63 is still for cars. So it is an evolution of how we are changing our mentality and how we're evolving on doing this. I hope I don't live to see that we reverse it again. So we don't know what's going to happen, but at this point is where our community is going and supporting this. Because without, and I think people like you guys that are interested in these type of environments is what is pushing the city to do these projects. When we tried to do the project in 2008, staff was moving something and the community didn't want it. So we could not work alone. We need the dynamic of the community supporting.
And part of even the 200 block, with the amount of restaurants that are on this block, all of the restaurants obviously wanted additional space for seating and dining. So it was even kind of the city, some was saying, we believe we need to keep some parking on Clematis Street, which is rare. We're usually the ones trying to design it a little differently, but we listened to what they had to say. After they saw it and felt it, they said, we want that, we want more space, and we believe that it'll be good for our business. And that's my goal for redevelopment, is it'll be good for the businesses. It's painful, this process is painful, we know that. We're trying to help as much as possible, but at the end of the day, I believe it'll be good for all of the businesses. And just so you all know kind of the dynamics between how we work together, and both of them and myself know about everything about this project, it is so important. We're definitely working as a team. As a redevelopment agency, I'm concerned with the businesses. I'm concerned with the public space and how it feels. I'm the tree person and the wider sidewalks and that, as well as Anna Maria. She's on that as well. And Erik's from the engineer. Make sure we're building a safe environment for everyone. And so we were truly partners in this as we went through every single step of designing.
I guess
that's just a final picture.
That's a finished product. It feels like it's always been like that now, doesn't it? I think you forget what it looked like. I guess I'm going to start with this. I'm going to talk a little about engineering, the transportation engineering side of it, project management, a little bit of lessons learned. There's a crowd here, some planners, activists, are there any engineers, architects? Okay. Well, I'm going to go with a few engineering details, but I think it's good. A lot of people don't take the time to go into the details. But one of the things I want you to think about is curbless streets and shared streets. What does anyone have a definition of a shared street? What do you?
Everything is put on it,
Right. That's pretty much it's. Bicycles. I'll give you on the right stuff. Fortunately, when I did this, Federal Highway came out with a nice manual about that time. You can download it for free. Their definition is a shared street is pedestrians, bicycles, motor vehicles mixed. So this, I guess if we go through this, think about how did Clematis end up? And is it a shared street? Is it a curbless street? Well, then we can talk about that at the end. And the recipe to get a shared street is low motor vehicle speeds, low motor vehicle volumes. We're kind of lucky Clematis dead ends at the water. And this is the other one I'm talking about is that as an engineer, we have a hard time wrapping our heads around is the lack of design elements to show that a car has priority. That you'll see, we don't use striping, we don't use signs to tell people where they are, what cars should be. It's a lot of pavers, a free-for-all. So, but it works, but it's not what you're taught when you come out of college and you work for a highway department, like I did. And finally, it's the elements, it's the benches, the art, it's the things that let people interact, make it comfortable for people. That's the other. So there's 4 key ingredients, and I guess we can think about how we did and all those. And on the left, that's a big, like I think a 4-lane road in Orlando. It's curbless. That's not a shared street. Middle's a shared street. My personal preference is we're kind of closer to shared street, but not 100%. So. Okay, I got a question for you. I want to keep it a little interactive. Before Clematis Street, what curbless streets did West Palm have? I know of 2. Rosemary?
Yeah.
Who's the second?
It's only 4.
Okay, Rosemary is one of
Pioneer
them.
Plaza.
Before
They made it up speedway roundabout.
Yeah.
Narcissus?
Yeah. So the one I know about is actually right down here in the 100 block, Lantana. It's curbless.
Oh yeah, okay.
And this is a picture actually of Rosemary before and after I found. Something I don't think I've told anyone this before, but I had worked in a CRA as an engineer, and at the time I worked with a planner who was very progressive.
You know you're being recorded.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure.
I've been to downtown West Palm mostly to party and not really notice things. And we got talking about, well, you need curb. The design manual says you need curb. He's like, have you ever been on Rosemary? This guy Ian Lockwood did this street. There's no curb. And it's like next time I was down in West Palm, I'm like, there's something about it. It's great. The inverted crown. The sidewalks could be wider. It's not perfect, but for what they had to work with, it works. So that got me thinking about a lot of what's in the manuals maybe isn't right, or I shouldn't say it's not right. It's designed for higher speed highways. It's not meant for city streets. So this talking about project management. So I'm really proud of. We had a great team, and I'm say we got it done quicker than the related group. I'm gonna be.
First rock thrown right now.
So I think around December.
That was Erik Ferguson.
Around December, I was told you have $2 million. We don't know what block you're doing. We don't know what the scope is, but you need to have it ready in the summer. You need to get it done before MoonFest. And you have to get all the approvals. And after I think I went in the office with the door shut and yelled at Scott Kelly for about a half hour about how it was impossible. Maybe a little longer words I'm not going to repeat. We laid out a schedule. This ended up pretty close to what happened. Basically, it was all governed by city commission meetings, was our milestones for approvals. We did a lot of things in parallel. We were designing while we were kind of taking guesses on where we thought the public input would lead us. But in the beginning, we didn't know what block we were doing. Now we take it for granted that we've reduced parking. At the time, I think a lot of people forget, you go back to the Case of City, we had a lot of people on both sides that came out for that. At the time, it was still controversial. And this is partially how we got it done. We had we used Burkhardt, a construction manager risk model. Allison and I met every week. The minute the plans got done from the engineer, we with Burkhart, going through them for hours on end, getting with suppliers, making sure we could get the materials, the lead time, getting prices from subcontractors the minute the plans and the ink was still wet. Go through a few lessons learned of engineering, and it's obvious now, but in the middle, those orange lines, that's the only drainage on the street. Basically, the water at the time, where the big oaks are, the water comes in, bubbles back out, keeps going west to east. There's no drainage. Which, when you had 6-inch high, when you have a curve, it works.
Yeah.
Right. So just think about there's no pipes. That'll be important in the later slides. So then we started getting into the reality of the left is what Victor Dover wanted. He called the Audrey Hepburn trench drain. Trench. And that's I went on vacation with my wife. That's GRS Romans. I said that still works. And that's construction manager at risk, what we can afford. So, let's give you this. This I just had to keep this one because this is all the decisions we had to go through. We even one time looked at porcelain pavers. We had wanted to do we actually at one time wanted to do what Worth App has, poured concrete, but for cost and speed, that didn't happen. We spent a lot of time debating shell aggregate. If that was going to be dated, I'm happy with what we picked. As the engineer, I was happy to just not have to be involved in it. So
the porcelain, it was funny because the porcelain tiles, this is the decisions we had to go through. We're at a meeting and they bring a sample of a tile and you go, well, is it strong? Because it doesn't look like, I don't know. And I don't know if it's strong or not. We went out there and we go, well, does anybody have anything? Get a hammer. Whatever it is. So sometimes the decision has to be through trial and error of the, and we determined at that time that it was not strong enough for the sidewalks on the map.
I think the gray at the end too was I'll tell you a funny story. We're in the DDA, this is in a DDA office, and the landscape architect pointed at Duffy's and said, if someone spills fry grease, you don't want to white paper. So that was that decision. We talked a lot about how a shared street, you really don't want a lot of traffic control devices that say this is car space, this is people space. The narrow lanes are still controversial to some engineers. So at the end of the day, believe it or not, we just went to the manual. The existing manuals, a lot of it was allowed. We had a long debate about should we have a double yellow line down the street like it had before the project. Flat out, the manual of uniform traffic control devices from the Federal Highway Administration. For this type of street, it's not needed. So, I think this, what I highlighted is really interesting.
20 feet, it's 18 feet.
Well, with the half the gutter.
It's not even a new project. Olive has that south of Okeechobee.
Yeah, it's all, Right. Well, some people forget we have stuff to work with. This is, I highlighted this from the Florida Green Book. In a traditional neighborhood, drivers should feel uncomfortable exceeding design speed due to the presence of parked cars, enclosure. So, it's in the manual. People tell you it can't be done. It can be done.
And that was one of the big things about this process. Erik was always looking for, no, we can do it because it says in here in the standards that we can. Because that's always like the general concept, no, we cannot do it. Where does it say? No, it says we can do it, so let's do it.
Yeah, I'm kind of a design manual nerd. This is something that came up, a lesson learned, and I think is that we have a lot of advocates here. Something to think about is the concept of jaywalking, which if you look into the history, it's not a nice term. It's depending where you're meant for people from the country that are uneducated. So, but the 300 block, you do have 2 traffic signals at each end. So the only time you're technically jaywalking, the statutes are not clear, is that there's 2 traffic signals, which is shown in this illustration on the left is 2 traffic signals with nothing else. By law, you have to walk to the traffic signal. So in the other case, if you have a marked mid-block crosswalk, it's legal to cross there, and hence the 2 signals are no longer adjacent. You can walk across the street everywhere. So I really, Victor Dover really tried to push me not to put any markings on the street, but in the end, I made a decision that we painted the 2 concrete header curbs in the middle of the block to technically meet standards. And the other option was to put a sign that said shared street, but we really were trying to keep the street clean, avoid signs as much as possible. So, this was interesting. We started out with we wanted to do a scored concrete roadway. In the end, pavers, sometimes public works, the maintenance can be controversial. In the end, it was our utilities department it's one good thing is you get everyone in the room. The utilities department actually pushed for the pavers, because I think we all agreed we weren't going to do asphalt for this sort of street. Okay, and then they said, well, if we have to work on something or whatever, pavers you can remove, put back, it's going to look the same. And our in-house crews can do that. A special finished concrete it's not going to match correctly, and so that's how we ended up with and the pavers. Actually, the cost was very competitive too. So, and that was the nice thing about the CMAR model. We got real prices right away from construction people. Versus, engineers aren't always up on the latest prices. Something I'm proud of is this was our first use of suspended pavement. Does everyone know what that is? Okay, it's on the left is, I'm not proud, that's Dixie Highway in West Palm. That's 600 block by the trains. Yeah. Yep. You can see that used something called structural soil, which is a special type of gravel that's coated that the tree roots still can grow within. They've done well, and then we use suspended pavement, which is it's kind of like a plastic cribbing. It has a flat top, and the way that the parking, the sidewalk is transmitted directly down below the tree roots, so the soil's not compacted. And I'm not a landscape architect, I'm not doing it justice. I think we have one here, but it's not cheap, but we actually did a hybrid of structural soil and suspended pavement. Another thing we did innovative for the city, I believe it's the first time we used pervious pavers in the parking aisles, so the water will drain into the tree roots. It helps with the runoff into the intercoastal. This is just kind of another, they still have them here, the existing pavers are popping up on Clematis. So we wanted to do sort of a nice scored concrete, similar to Worth Ave. And the reality was at least on the 300 block, we went back with pavers again set on sand from a speed standpoint and a cost standpoint. Okay, this was, we were moving at such a fast pace. We had known from what year was the 90s project?
94?
Yeah, so the 94 project, a lot of the streets in West Palm in the late 20s, they'd pour an 8 to 15 inch concrete slab right on the sand and then 3 inches of asphalt. Very common. If you look at pavement design textbooks from the 20s, it's a very common design method. So we had a couple pours and we thought we had 10 to 19 inches of concrete. So the plan was we were going to grind off the asphalt, grind off a little more of the concrete, and pour a nice decorative concrete sort of an overlay on it. We got into design, did more pours, and sure enough, we had 10 to 19 inches of concrete everywhere but on the 300 block. So that didn't happen. I'm getting near the end. I think these were kind of some news headlines about concern about the fire trucks, trolleys not being able to pass. We had all the social media that it was a one-way road, was it going to be wide enough? So I think at some point if you believe in this stuff, you have to stick to your guns and you know, it works. I think the only lesson we learned was with bollards, the flush street, people park by feel. I didn't think with curbs. So I think what happened on 300 blocks, a lot of people don't park over as far as they should. And so on the 200 block, so we had some of the parking, people weren't, even though the parking is a normal size, parallel, they end up encroaching in the road. So on a 200 block, they've addressed that by making the parking wider. So, but these were, you know, the news was all over that, but 10-foot lanes do work. So sometimes, you know what's right, you have to, I'm glad that I was fortunate enough to have a great team, a great mayor at the time that really, council that believed in this stuff. So it took a lot of things came together to make it happen. And, you know, now it feels like 300 blocks is like the new normal in streetscape. And I'm just, you know, because I don't work in the city anymore, so I can say what it's just, I'm amazed. It's a short memory of, I would love to go back to some of the meetings and, you know, it's going to be the end of the world, and it hasn't. So. The other thing I really noticed was that as a project manager, the streetscape project affected every department in the city had a say. Police, IT, sanitation, utilities, fire rescue. It's really, so I think it was one of the things we did was we did bring all the departments together in the process, and it really served as a template. I think that with the lessons learned, the city's in a good place to execute future streetscape projects from sort of the template of what was done here. So I think that's my last slide. Here's our guys, anything else? Any questions?
If you have something that you're most proud of that came out of this, and what turned out that was like not what you wanted, that like the best of is like, or anyway.
I think the best is
The best is, well, for me and I don't know for Erik, who's not here anymore, is actually talking to people and hearing people, whether they're within the city or without, you know, outside of the city, to say I'm not here at night a lot. I don't live in West Palm Beach. In particular at night, I hear people say it just feels so different when I get to the 300 block. It's just, you know, so when you hear people talk about it, that's where that's really the success of it. I'm really happy that we ended up going with the pavers. You know, Erik, as he mentioned, you know, the colors, that becomes more of a controversy than anything. And in 20 years, that might not be the color palette that the city wants, but and now we believe that it works. We believe it's neutral. The worst is,
I think initially we over-bollard, if that's a real word.
We put too many bollards. And, you know, that was one of the things I was just telling Erik this on the 1 and 200 blocks. You know, we were really concerned about safety on the Bourbon Street. This was pretty unique. So we want to make sure there's enough bollards that people feel safe. What we learned was, okay, well, we also don't want people hitting their car doors, and we also don't want people running into them when they turn the corner. So we've eliminated a lot of the bollards. We've also made it all flexible. The 1 and 200 blocks are all retractable bollards. So that was really a lesson learned. The other thing was we had some businesses, we had some merchants after we opened up say, you didn't even pay attention to where my business was and if I got additional space out in front of my business. Well, we didn't. It was that road was built symmetrical. So if there was a parking on one side, there was a parking on another. If there was a tree on one side, there was a tree on the other. I mean, that is the way that it was built. And it was only because we had started the process and we were only going to do some temporary, you know, it happened all so quick. So it wasn't on purpose for any merchants on the 300 block. There was nothing that we were saying, oh, you don't get additional seating in front of your business. Definitely one of my regrets of that project. And I think we can modify that in the future.
So saying that you would want to take into consideration consideration?
We did take into consideration. We took on the 200 block, we took into consideration if there is a restaurant.
And that would be what you want.
Right. And that was what would have been what we would have wanted to do. Now, I'm not saying everybody, we still have the trees and they're still symmetrically laid out. But it was, we took into consideration more what the businesses wanted. Now, I don't know that this business will always be a restaurant. You can't kind of predict for the future for everything, but we can kind of, at least for now, we took that in. And on some of these, I'll use Kabuki as an example. They don't have additional space in front of them. They have a parking space in front of them. Okay, so if that was retractable and what we plan on doing with the regulations in the future, and we might be able to change that, is that we can lease that space out and we can move the retractables to the other side, pull them up, they can lease it out on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, and they can have they can have dining out there. Now, I think we'll be able to accommodate that once the and Anna Maria's working on changing the Sap Cafe's site seating.
Right.
And that's things that now we know. I think we can accommodate it.
Yeah, and I think, it would be interesting for us to learn how the businesses start to use the street and how people start to use the street. Right now, for example, in the 300 block, there are a lot of the spaces that have a white side and nothing is going on in those spaces. So there's a kind of a learning process of how the city and the citizens can start appropriating those spaces for enjoyment. And that's kind of something that the community as a whole have to start involving and having proposals and dynamics.
Right, do we put some sort of temporary display out in these places? Yeah, you name it, it could be a number of different things that we can do.
So I just have a question. We talked about Rosemary, we talked about Clematis. What other tertiary streets are planned for downtown? Because I don't think it's just these two. Aside from
I would say, so the other shared streets likely that are planned are Iverdi and Datura. Iverdi and Datura streetscapes are part of the CRA bond that will be funded in late July. So all of this project is also being funded by that bond, but we're going to start the planning process within the next several months on those streetscapes. So that'll be an extensive planning process for that as well. We are also 7th Street in the historic Northwest. We are redoing from Rosemary to Sapodilla. That will be purpose as well and adjacent to the park that's being built there. Rosemary North. Well, I don't think that's it. So another thing just to mention to you all that will also, I think, the public meeting coming up at the end of June for Banyan. Banyan is, we are, I think, close to 90% design on Banyan Streetscape. So Banyan is a different animal. It is an arterial into downtown, and it will be a bicycle. It is a mobility, a part of the mobility plan. There will be raised sidewalks with raised cycle tracks on both sides of Banyan, all the way to downtown. Like I said, we'll have a public input process on that. And so that's not curbless, but in the intersections are all raised to be curbless to go across. So.
Nice. All right.
There are.
It is an underused shade tree in our city.
It is an underused shade tree. That actually was on my list. That was actually on my list of questions. I have to tell you because I'm like, well, I wonder, is there a reason we don't plant?
City Place just planted too. You can, if you build the right soil box, it works.
So just so you all know, right now there's black olives back at the sidewalk of Banyan. We are keeping what we can there because they actually do provide shade on Banyan. We'll be adding a median, so there'll be, I think there's Royal Poincianas all in the median on Banyan, plus some shade trees on the where there's not black olives, there'll be shade trees on the curb line on Banyan.
And also we're keeping those ones because our power lines on top, so we remove those ones that are big and all the plants, small trees. So we're keeping the large ones that are in there to try to compensate. And as long as we can survive with those ones, we will leave them.
You will notice on Clematis there will be in the intersection though a concrete Clematis flower in the intersection.
I mean,
Is it in general still open? And is he saying going to public feedback? It sounds like you're doing design for the public feedback.
Well, the public feedback on Banyan is a little bit different because it is part of the bicycle master plan. So there's about only so much we can do on that. We
That's
would
where
be-
like why the median and the something. Yeah.
It's just a different, it's a, honestly, Banyan's a different. The only businesses there are federal and state and county buildings. There's not a lot of businesses along Banyan, so the public input is way different than what we're going to do on Clematis and Hibernian Day Progress. And we're looking at the actual design of the
there's no
street sections.
there's no on-street parking that we can remove and widen stuff. So we are basically narrowing the traffic as much as possible for this type of road, but it's not
It seems like crossing. We can have it offline. Yeah.
So, thank you all for speaking. We've got one more question after the class, because why not? We'll mix things up. Michelle.
I have a question. Well, first of all, I really want to commend the city of West Palm Beach for doing such a wonderful job with the streetscape development of Clematis Street. And I also really, truly appreciate you taking sort of like an incremental approach to it. What my perception is, doing it block by block and learning from your experiences, making it better as you go. I just really admire that, and I just really commend the city for that process. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for someone that is acting as a consultant to the city, perhaps, and designing streets with these very contemporary thoughts that you are embracing in a municipality that may not be very familiar with that kind of thought process. I don't know if you had any advice for someone like me, a designer, perhaps approaching a municipality, or if there was anything that really stuck out to you or helped convince you to embrace these ideas, or any advice for someone like me going through that design process.
I'd say if you can find your champion in City Hall that is in administration. I mean, we had a mayor that this was a vision for her, and she had a goal, and she hired staff that really was going to implement her. So finding somebody on either your city commission or high up in administration, if you don't have that leadership, you tend to sometimes, as a consultant, and I know I've worked with consultants, and I know it's hit the roadblocks of we can't do that, that's not what we do, that's not, and luckily we had, West Palm Beach has one of the most progressive engineering departments in the state. I mean, they're wonderful, so we're lucky.
I also think that the phase approach was very, very helpful for us, because when we did the 300 walk, I mean, we had been resistant for people. There were a lot of people that were not certain about it. So just to be able to do this vlog and show them was super beneficial, because then the rest of the vlogs, nobody complained. Not to say nobody complained, but it was much easier. They were, oh yeah, we like this. Oh yeah, it's good. I mean, we have in the public meeting for the second, for the 200 vlog, we have people that before were like, why are you doing this? Coming and saying, why don't you make these street all pedestrian, close to person? When before they were not even in support of the car, they parking spaces, or even not in couple lanes. So to have something to show, it's super beneficial.
Good example. That might be a good suggestion for us. I mean, it's like, thought about doing a backwards project.
Right.
It may not help you over here, but what I've seen is you need the citizen advocates that are going to always be there as administrations change. That's really important, that people are going to show up at the meetings, stand up for the project. I think you've also asked what are things professionally that made us think about stuff. I'd say one of them was walk audits of streets. Basically, there's people that do that, but if you take the elected officials, citizens, the engineers, the planning department, we actually have them try to walk down the street, and how it's been very, very effective. It really gets people thinking about it. And travel, that's probably for me was one of the biggest things I think that opened up my mind was going to different parts of the country. I was fortunate, I grew up in upstate New York, and there were places that roads have been there a long time that didn't meet standards, current standards. I think when I came to I think when I came to Florida, it was the first time I ever saw a double left turn lane in these huge roads, and it was like, I didn't know how to drive them. So I think that's, that's important. We can take the elected officials to other places where it works, talk to their peers. I mean, as a consultant, that's a really long game. That doesn't answer your question, but that's what I'd say.
Thank you all. Please make sure you subscribe. And if you're not a member yet of ConnectWPB, there's not donate $25. It's an annual membership. We're a volunteer organization. It's volunteer board. None of us get paid to do this stuff. Put on these events, organize our bike cleanups, or advocate for bike walk through the city. So if you're not a member yet, ConnectWPB, it's $25 to become a member. Great philanthropic actions to donate to ConnectWPB. So you can your donation. And if not, we'll see you on July 17th for our next Bourbon Sprawl. Our speakers will be Greg Daniel, I think, North End Rise. Very good speaker, also very, very prominent activist in the community, trying to break the cycle of violence in North End, and also works on housing issues. So we have a very good speaker, not transportation related. See you then.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you all.
Well, we don't officially
I think we might do that right now.
because then you can talk about
She's talking about the papers.